know when to go out, know when to stay in.
Hi everyone, we'll just wait for a few more minutes, just whilst people join us. Sometimes people have problems logging in. I know we did. so you're all coming through thick and fast, so that's what we want to see. Okay. So let's make a start, and then we'll record this on. We should be recording this, and we will share it on YouTube afterwards. So I know lots of people, the times didn't really work for them. So yeah. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Professor Alistair Griffiths, who's Director of Science and Collections at the Royal Horticultural Society, which is quite topical given the fact that Chelsea Flower Show is on at the moment.
Yeah.
So this is a series of webinars that we're doing, which is helping to support patients during this COVID-19 pandemic. We're coming out of this, but we're trying to share experience from the clinicians and also from external speakers, just with some ideas of how you can cope with the current situation. So over to you, Alistair. Would you like to say a few words about your background?
Yeah. Hi everyone. So I'm Alistair. My background is basically I've been obsessed with plants since the age of 4. My granddad got me into gardening, and then basically spent quite a lot of time in college. So spent about 5 years in college, and then went on, did a degree at Reading University in botany, so understanding plants, and then did a PhD for a further 5 years. And then I worked and was one of the people that were involved in setting up the Eden Project, which was a fantastic project. And now it's all about growing plants and doing science to help people grow the RHS. Thank
you, Alistair. I mean, I have to say that everybody knows that plants are good for you and gardening is good for you, but then so many other things are kind of good for you too. And it's quite, I hadn't realized how important gardening and planting was. I mean, I knew it had an effect, but I didn't realize quite the impact it has. And I think a lot of work that you've done, research that you've done, actually demonstrates the power of getting involved in gardening. Would you like to share some highlights? Yeah, I mean, I think certainly I'm a trustee of something called People and Gardens, and that's where I first saw it at Eden Project. Basically, gardening has this amazing power in relation to bringing back responsibility, self-respect. It enables you to grow things, to have control, to see things happen, and there's a whole thing to do with stress reduction and psychology of gardening. Plus, it's quite it's an ability of something, like I said, that you get rewarded from, even if you fail, because you can carry on and try again. It doesn't really matter if you fail. You can try again, do something else, and eventually you get there. So yeah, physical exercise, mental, and social as well. It's kind of one of those things that cuts across all levels. And if you're obsessed about gardening and you meet someone else who's a gardener, yeah, you know, it's just a chat. That's all that happens, really. I mean, I have to share that Alistair has helped to write this book, which is called Your Wellbeing Garden. We'll share a link with that after the webinar, and we'll put it on YouTube. But I have to say, Alistair, this is absolutely remarkable. This is one of the best books I've read for a very, very, very long time, and it's a book which is full of knowledge and facts and information, but it doesn't, you know, it's not a heavy read. It's really interesting. For example, I didn't realize that digging and going for a brisk walk were basically burning up the same number of calories. And, you know, if you're going for a brisk walk, generally when people go for walks and runs, they go in a circle and end up where they started. Whereas if you were to do the same gardening instead, you'd actually end up with carrots and peas and beautiful flowers. So
Yeah.
it goes back to that point that you made earlier about getting reward out of actually doing stuff which is good for you.
Yeah, I mean, there is, you know, it's one of the things they used Harvard to look at the number of calories burnt per 30 minutes. And, you know, absolutely. I mean, one thing about gardening, which is very different to all the other types of exercise, is that you get, once you start getting into gardening, you get into something called a bit of flow. It's a theory that basically you get distracted. And honestly, you could be in lots of times I'm in my garden and I lose track of time.
Yeah.
And that's because you're so in the present or in the thing that you're doing that you can do activity for a longer period of time without feeling as tired. It's not like a sweaty gym. You're in the outdoors, you're getting the sunshine if it's sunny like today, but at the same time you're doing gradual exercise, which again for sort of older patients, it has a real advantage because, you know, if you have a garden or a balcony or even houseplants, you can at least do those activities either in your home or very close to your home.
I think that's a really good point, actually, because going back to the walking piece, so generally people don't walk for a few hours, but actually for gardening, it wouldn't be unusual to garden for a few hours. And also, this is, so I read Alistair's book a few days ago. Well, you don't have to read it; it's not a heavy read, but, you know, just flick through any bits that are of interest to you. And as a result, I've gone off and bought some vegetable seeds and actually beyond the gardening and the little pots and plants, actually the whole experience has been fantastic. You know, going to a garden centre, which I didn't entirely, they're not necessarily always welcoming places, you know, because you don't know your way around the Latin names and then and I spent the afternoon just sort of potting things with my 5-year-old son, and we had an absolutely wonderful afternoon. And he's so keen, actually, and he's never done it before. And then at 3 o'clock in the morning, he woke up and said, "Daddy, like, what's the matter?" He said, "Look, are seeds okay? Or the bird's going to come and peck them?" No, they'll be fine. They're growing, but really slowly. So I think I, for one, hadn't realised how strong that link was between health and gardening, and not just the exercise, but, you know, if you're growing vegetables, then, or if you're growing lettuce or something, you're more likely to eat healthily. Even if you've got a carrot growing and it hasn't quite grown yet, you're more likely to buy carrots, you know, whilst you're waiting for that one to grow. So it's from a personal point of view, it's been transformative, and honestly, it's really rare that happens.
And I think it is definitely a transformation element. And, you know, there are things that you can start off with that are really, really easy. So I've got an example here. It's a bit silly, but, you know, professors that can be silly, you know. So this is my Chelsea Flower Show lady. And to be honest, this is just an egg with a bit of composting and cress seed. And, you know, cut a bit of that off, egg and cress seed. But for kids, you know, you can make a whole family. And the beauty of cress is that you probably remember at school doing it, but it's so quick. You know, it's a really quick thing. And, you know, planted's like that. So I've done that. And just recently we published a paper about seeds in space. So we took seeds up to space. We had 600,000 school kids germinating seeds in space and comparing the difference. I chose rocket because it germinates within a day, and you can taste it. And I think, you know, people often think that, you know, if you garden, or what if I fail? But again, I think it's part of a journey. I mean, failure, you don't go through life being successful. You fail all the time, and actually, but once you've overcome that obstacle, and this is with growing. Once you've managed to grow that prize plant or that prize thing, and believe you me, I've failed many times. Then the joy is more for somewhere because you've had to struggle to get that. But having said that, you can also grow things and be successful instantly. So awarded garden merit plants, for example, you can grow them and you'll be successful. Cress, it'll be very difficult to kill cress, right? Other than eating it. So I think, people often with allotments, they get massive allotments. Don't do that. Start with a small amount. Be successful with that, and then build. Like you build up in relation to being an athlete, or if you wanted to do the marathon. It's the same with gardening. Start small, be successful, build on that, and learn. And I think, it's a real connector for people, and as well, it's like you say with your son. We've got sunflower competition out at the moment in the garden between them. My son was out this morning watering his plants, thinking he's going to get the biggest one. So it's a real family event, to be honest. What he doesn't know is I've given him a different cultivar to mine. Mine's Russian Giant, which is much bigger than his anyway. So
sadly, my 5-year-old knows more about gardening than me, so I don't have that advantage. But I think that one of the things that you kind of get across is the fact that actually gardening isn't for people with big gardens and a wealth of experience and avid gardeners who know all the Latin names. Actually, gardening is for everyone. I suppose. Do you want to share your thoughts on gardening in small spaces or gardening indoors?
Yeah, I mean, gardening absolutely is for everyone, and I think inside the kind of things you can grow. There's one little experiment that I did, which again you could do. So this is popcorn from Tesco, and I did like a little experiment for photosynthesis. 2 weeks on this is. So one was in light, and that's the joke. I had a Chinese takeaway before that was a bit of a bonus. So that one's in light. So I just put that on the windowsill. 2 weeks of germination. This is corn, really, popcorn.
Just popcorn.
Yeah, and this is in the dark, and you see it's yellow. So this yellow is that it hasn't actually photosynthesized because it hasn't had the light to do it. This is really sweet because it hasn't turned the sugars into starch, whereas this won't be because it's turned those sugars into starch. Basic photosynthesis. You can do this with the kids in the cupboard, and again, it's just growing because I tell you what, germination and giving life. Us blokes can't give life in that way other than germinating seeds. Giving that life is such a powerful thing. Also in the house, a peace lily plant, little house plant. I've got a parlor palm, and you could do this with any little plant. And I've got a light that I spike into the, I think it's about 5-10 pounds. Just put it into it, plugged it in, use it as a lamp, and it reflects on the roof. All the palm, the sort of palm fronds. It's like you're in a jungle. You can use tin cans as for planting in relation to sort of compost and grow those. Another one that's really easy is this one here. This is asparagus fern. You cannot really kill this one. And then you see on my back wall there, if you're wanting to go a bit more extravagant, this is plant box. So this is a new kit that basically has a reservoir, and I've put ferns in, which it's in and I am going to use a Latin name here, sorry, Asplenium scolopendrium. It's basically a fern that is really robust, and you can have that on the wall and grow that on the balcony. Lavender is such a giver. It is proven that it does impact on neurology and on the brain. It's a calm and relaxant. They don't quite know what the mechanism is yet, but absolutely there is a direct proof that it does that, because it's now there's sleep pills for lavender which are registered through the medicine. How many years has it been between lavender's been a bit of an aromatherapy and a myth? So I think Yeah, so having lavender or rosemaries, you can have on the balcony. You can bring it in and maybe put it on the flowers, cut the flowers and put them on the side of your bed to help you get into a more deeper sleep. So there's a paper recently that showed that it put patients into a deeper sleep if it was put next to the bed. And in relation to, if you're anxious, you really do sometimes not find it easy to sleep. So I certainly put it next to my bed when I'm feeling a little bit anxious.
Yeah, and one of the things that I discovered is just in the last few days is actually not necessarily having is it vertical planting, where you can basically this doesn't destroy the wall or anything, even if you're renting somewhere. So it just you can have these self irrigation pots which you can put small plants in, and you can just go straight onto the wall, and it just changes. People think of like putting up bits of art or wallpaper or a poster or something. Actually, plants are it's just something again that I hadn't really thought of, and actually it makes such a difference. It does have more of an effect than we as a practice have realised, and certainly something that we want to try to kind of to get more people involved. Just for the patients who are here, I just want to let you know that allotments are a good way not only to grow stuff and test things, but also to learn from other people. And generally, allotments are welcoming organisations and people, and it's a really good way to kind of make friends. And they, actually people feel, if you don't know much about plants and somebody else does, then everyone feels better. So you feel better from learning, and they feel better from teaching. So Chiswick has some spaces available, and we'll share that information that it's available to anybody in Hounslow. So we'll share that link with you afterwards. But